Hello guys! Welcome back to my channel. It's another day at isa na namang bansa yung pupuntahan natin. And this time, pupunta ako sa Central Europe. Ang pupuntahan nating bansa ngayon is ang Bosnia and Herzegovina. Let's go!
Gentlemen, welcome aboard this Swiss Abu Dhabi flight to Sarajevo. It's our great pleasure to welcome our frequent flyers as well as with discount club members and those who are traveling with us for the first time.
Yung airline nga pala na sinakyan ko is Wizz Air. Isa sa mga popular na budget airline dito sa UAE. Sa Abu Dhabi yung terminal nila. Finally, after 5 hours and 45 minutes, we're here at Sarajevo International Airport. Para nga pala sa Filipino travelers, kailangan ng visa dito. Pero kung may Schengen or US multiple entry visa ka, no need na. So, ito yung airport nila. Medyo maliit lang actually. So, from here at Sarajevo Airport, magbabas lang ako papuntang city center. And yung bus stop is papuntang Bascarsija. Malapit lang dun yung hotel ko. So, maglalakad lang ako from there. So, eto siya, Bascarsija. So, yung hotel ko dito sa Sarajevo is Franz Ferdinand Hostel. Malit lang siyang hostel pero popular siya sa mga backpackers. Yung pinili ko na room is yung isang bed sa 8-person dorm room. Good morning from Sarajevo. So, tapos na ako mag-breakfast. Kumain lang ako ng Bosnian bread with egg and sausage and coffee. Right now, nasa Bascarsija Square ako. And dito nga sa center ng square, makikita mo yung Trebević Fountain. And ang dami-daming kalapati dito actually. Ngayon lang ako nakakita ng ganito karaming kalapate na nandito lang sa paligid. Ang dami talagang kalapati dito. At dahil marami sila, medyo madumi din yung mga upuan dahil sa kanilang mga ipot. Tignan mo naman. Dito nga pala sa Sarajevo, ang center ng Muslim community dito sa Bosnia and Herzegovina. Kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga structures dito sa Sarajevo, kapareho ng sa Turkey. That's because sinakop ng Ottoman Empire ang Bosnia noong 1463. Nagbook nga ako ng City of Sarajevo tour. And first stop namin is itong Old Jewish Cemetery. Ito yung naging front line ng mga Bosnian Serbs nung gusto nilang sakupin ang Sarajevo noon. And dati nga, sobrang dami daw ng landmines dito.
Eto, tu utakmica ovih dana, majke.
So, next stop namin is yung Sarajevo Tunnel. Ito yung tunnel na ginawa ng mga locals para mag-link sa kanila sa outside world during the siege.
So guys, this is basically the situation I was telling you about, right? So this is this entire area. This is the city. We started our tour from here. We were driving 14 kilometers, and now we are here. Bosnian Free Territory is over there. Airport and City of Sarajevo, it's over there. So just to roughly give you this idea. Today, infamous what we call snipers alleys in this area. This area is Trebević, the neighborhood that I was telling you about, and the place where the war started officially. You know, this act that started the conflict. Now, I was mentioning you about 3 stages. You know, of the war. Taking city, cutting it, completely cutting off the city from the rest of the world, cutting city into 2 parts, and third one is basically what I said, the deliberate targeting of civilians and the people of the city. So, regarding the first stage of their plan, completely closing Sarajevo. First, at the beginning of the war, airport was controlled by the Yugoslav. Officially, it was the Yugoslav army at that time. Later, you know, things will change, and city was completely cut off. So nothing goes in, nothing goes out. You know. And the second part happened, you know, in this particular case that I would rule out, happened between 2nd and 5th of May 1992, when the Yugoslav and Serbian army attempted to cut city into 2 parts in this area by taking a presidency and continuing further into cutting this city like in this line. You know, luckily that part of their plan failed. You know, Bosnia managed to stop it, so there was certain battle taking place and so on, fighting. So how could a bunch of civilians manage to stop this big army? No better weapons, not better uniforms. We're gonna see there's exhibition later on, you know, about the weapons that the Bosnian army had at one point at the beginning of the war. We're gonna see weapons that were made from the old water pipes and so on. Well, simply there's one thing that Bosnian army had, and that was far superior than any army at that time in the world, basically, and that was a motive. Because if you look at the people who stayed in Sarajevo, who decided to take assault guns, small caliber assault guns, to fight against tanks and heavy artillery, you know, you really need to have a really, really good motive or really good reason for that. And it was not politics. It was not country. It was not the president. It was not that. But the city of Sarajevo, at the beginning, before town was open and so on, was defended by the locals. So what I wanted to say is that they had a really, really, really personal motive to defend that. And if you have the army that have nowhere to run, that has nothing else nowhere else to go, and if you put this kind of spice of having this kind of personal motive there to fight, it did came out as you know, I'm not going to say winner because of how the war ended later on, but they managed to stop Yugoslav, or actually Serbian army, of cutting city into 2 parts that day. After that, rarely there would be much of attempts of attacks. Well, I mean, there was. Look, this was a 64-kilometer long siege line. We're talking about the 64 kilometers long line of death, of suffering, of trenches, of battlefields, of you know, these stuff. So this was a war. They were attempting to attack and so on, but it would not be so organized later. The idea was to take city from within. Yeah. By causing this, you know, death and suffering, and that's actually when the Bosnian army realized, and the people of Sarajevo realized, that its biggest enemy is not anymore Yugoslav or Serbian forces, but your biggest enemy now becomes time. The city was running low on food, medicine, antibiotics, you know. That's actually how the United Nations renegotiated control over the airport. You know, so this was like pretty much political, you know, talks, negotiations, and this is what was the agreement. Airport will be taken over by the United Nations, and it will be used there to establish this bridge, you know, to supply the supply bridge.
When was this?
That was by the second half, so actually the late 1992, when the United Nations took over the airport. You know. So to establish this air bridge where they could import food, supplies, and medicine into the city of Sarajevo, right? To stop this humanitarian crisis. You know, Parts of the agreement were also that the Bosnian army and civilians cannot go from one to the other side of the airport. You know. Okay. In most of cases, if you decide to run from the city here, or that doesn't matter, from here to the other side, and if you get caught in the airport, you'd be taken back.
Okay.
So let's say if this was the war, now we decide to run to the city, we get arrested, they'll take us back here.
Yeah.
So you start playing this game cat and mouse. And let's say that you become really, let's say, experienced in going there, getting some supplies and coming back to the city, right? So that's actually how this entire idea of a tunnel was born by early 1993. You know, the army came up with a solution basically to build one structure below the airport, one structure that would actually connect Bosnian Free Territory with City of Sarajevo. You know, and the plan was that it's going to be built from two sides simultaneously, below the airport. It would be 800 meters long from this house to one of the houses on the other side. It would be 800 meters long, average, 1.5 meter tall and 1 meter wide. It would be dug from both sides, and eventually they would meet in the middle, you know, during this construction. That's how it happened, and it took them actually 4 months and 4 days to build it. So the tunnel was officially opened on 31st of July 1993. You know, so almost a year and 3 months into the war, the city properly became open. First shipment of food, proper supplies, proper, you know, ammunition was moved into the city, and that's actually when Sarajevo properly became open. I mean, in its real, in a real sense of being open. You know. Now we can go to the museum. You know, during most of the official correspondence, lots of official correspondence, their politicians and their officials played on a part of, I would say this, let's say, Islamophobia that was beginning at that time in Europe, not referring Bosnian army as a Bosnian army, but as a Muslim army. Yeah. Muslim army, Muslim. That's really, that was your message. Yeah. No, here they're different. You know, they're taking terms. You know, a couple of months, I'm not exactly sure now for how long, but they're changing sometimes. French, Norwegian, Swedish, you know, all the European countries, areas to objects that met in the middle. So they're individuals, and they met in 31st of July. One part of the tunnel that was built on this side, outside the city, was built using timber. So here, in this direction is a mountain, plenty of forest, plenty of trees. So it is the most accessible material. While on the other side, this is the city side. In the city of Sarajevo, there was no heating, there was no water, there was no Kinder chocolate, Toblerone, and bananas. Yeah.
Really fresh banana.
Nice and yellow.
Yeah. Should be brand by now.
You can see the list of 11,500 people who were killed in the city of Sarajevo during the siege. That's just in city of Sarajevo. And here you can see.
Here it's all.
You're too Dutch.
True. Yes.
Etong ang tunnel na to ay part ng original tunnel na ginawa nung gyera. So, na-preserve nila yung 25 meters na tunnel out of 800 meters.
So small.
Yeah.
You can get really claustrophobic. If you're claustrophobic. wasn't there at the beginning, right? The reels.
Yeah, it was there.
It was there.
So guys, now I'm gonna show you one video.
After nga ng Sarajevo Tunnel tour, nag-decide ako na pumunta ng Trebević Mountain via cable car. So, yung round trip transfer, nasa around $10. Here we go. So, mag-isa lang ako dito sa cable car. So, according nga sa website nila, nasa 7 minutes and 15 seconds yung one way papunta dun sa top ng Trebević Mountain. Noong 1984 pala, dito ginanap sa Sarajevo ang Winter Olympics. So, yung main purpose ko talaga kaya ako pumunta dito sa Trebević Mountain para makita yung remains ng bobsleigh at saka luge track nila. So, eto yung symbol ng Olympics, like Coca-Cola. Bago ko pa marating yung bobsleigh track, eh nakita ko muna tong event ng mga vintage car show. So nag-decide na lang din ako na tingnan muna. Meron ditong mga vintage cars ng Porsche, Mercedes, ano pa ba to? Hindi ko alam tong car na to. Mercedes, I think ito Audi. So mga vintage cars talaga. Okay, yung bobsleigh sa left daw. Tara na. Nasa 15 minutes din yung nilakad ko and malapit na malapit na. So, this is the bobsled truck. Ginamit to nung Olympics na ginanap dito sa Bosnia. I think 1984. So, kung makikita nyo, puros graffiti na yung mga walls. Actually, marami dito sa mga buildings dito at saka walls sa Sarajevo. Puros graffiti. So, siguro, ginagawa nila yun para makover yung mga holes na nangyari doon sa war. Yung mga butas na gagamit ng baril, bullets.